Hello, this is the Watchdog and welcome back to Fun with Watches. If watches weren't fun, you'd only need one. Today we're going to review the Sapphero S02106 GMT watch with the Batman bezel. Some people object to using Rolex nicknames on non-Rolex watches, but this is Fun with Watches and nicknames are fun. Let's start out with the wrist check. I'm wearing my Pagani Design PD 1689 homage to the Rolex Cellini. And Grogo is wearing my Fossil LE 1100, which is also a Batman GMT watch. Grogo is quite upset. He dressed up as Abraham Lincoln for Halloween, but when he went trick-or-treating, everyone said, "How cute, you're dressed up as Baby Yoda, but how come you're wearing a beard?" Plus, he didn't get a single frog egg. Here's the watch. If you look at the shape of the box, it looks a lot like a Benyar box, but it doesn't have the magnet clasp like a Benyar, and it's a pull-over box. So it's the same shape as a Benyar box, but totally different design. The cleaning cloth that came with it is kind of like paper. Kind of odd. Don't know how useful that is. Then the instructions. And there's only one link. I only had to remove one link to fit this watch on my 7.5-inch wrist. So that's kind of a gotcha if you have a big wrist. And here's the watch. This is the first Sapphero on my channel. You would think that Sapphero watches would feature sapphire crystals, since Sapphero is obviously a play on the word, and you would be 100% incorrect, as the crystal is hard in mineral glass. I noticed this watch because it was a GMT watch that had its own look without being a direct knockoff of the GMT Master 2. I chose the Batman bezel as I preferred the more subdued look, which complements the style more than the blue dial Pepsi. The watch is 41 millimeters at the bezel, 46.9 millimeters lug to lug, which is fairly short for a 41 millimeter bezel watch, 12.3 millimeters thick, has a 20 millimeter lug width, and weighs 140 grams with one link removed. The bezel is a fixed bezel. You can't turn it, despite the fact that it looks like it's a bezel you could turn, because it's got these coin edges for grip. Therefore, you can only track 2 time zones instead of 3. That is unfortunate, since this is not a true GMT watch with an independently adjustable hour hand. It is far easier to switch time zones by moving the bezel than the hands. This insert is aluminum with no lume. The dial is flat black with no sunburst effect. Sapphero name and the GMT in red letters printed on top. Water resistance to 100 meters on the bottom. I don't mind the redundant water resistant and the depth rating because since this is a quartz watch, you don't have automatic there, so it doesn't look too cluttered. The applied indices are your typical batons and dots, but at the 12 o'clock is the Sapphero logo, which is a nice touch. It has arrow hands with a very long arrow for the minute hand, and the GMT hand is small with a blue border. The second hand has no lume. The 3 o'clock date has a cyclops, which magnifies pretty good. I wouldn't say it's 2.5, but it's at least 2. And the second hand hits all the marks, so if you have that quartz watch OCD, this one should be okay. It says Swiss movement on the bottom because it has a Ronda 505.24H movement. This is a popular movement among GMT quartz watches due to the low price, and it lets the manufacturer add the word Swiss to the watch even though it only costs in the $70 range. I have 2 other watches with this movement, although the Fossil said the movement was Swiss parts but assembled in Thailand. I wonder if that was the case for this watch, so I opened it up. On the movement it says Swiss parts, but makes no mention of assembled in Thailand. It does say Swiss made on the battery, which I find odd. Does the battery have to be made in Switzerland for a quartz movement to be considered Swiss made? The unsigned crown is not a screw down, and it provides 100 meters of water resistance. In the second position, you turn the crown clockwise to set the date and counterclockwise to set the GMT hand. And the movement also hacks when you pull all the way out. The GMT hand does not jump, so you have to set it precisely. And if you go too far, let's say if I want to set it right here, if I go too far, then you have to go all the way around again, because it only turns in one direction. The case is solid stainless steel with polished edges, but brushed on top of the lugs. And the lugs are fairly short for the case, so it's nice because it doesn't make it look too big. The screw down case back is polished, and it has the word Sapphero and the Sapphero logo, and then gives your basic stainless steel 100 meters water resistance. Once again, it has a glass crystal and not sapphire, despite the name Sapphero, which is fine because normally on a watch at this price, the sapphire crystal would not have any AR coating, and then it would really reflect. The bracelet has inverted end links, which makes it really nice and lets the watch wear really a lot smaller than it is. The end links though are hollow, so, but they're in there good. I don't detect any rattle or anything, so I think hollow end links are fine. One thing about hollow end links, when you put the watch on a strap, it's a lot easier to set hollow end links back when you put the bracelet back on. This is a single link bracelet meant to look like a 3-link, and it has the polished center links. It has push pin adjusters and not screw down adjusters, and it has a butterfly clasp. I'm not a huge fan of butterfly clasps on steel bracelets due to the lack of micro adjust. Here's the watch on my 7.5-inch wrist. It looks nice, it wears nice. Keep in mind though, I only had to take out one link to fit this watch. And so if you have a wrist much bigger than 7 3/4 inches, you might not be able to wear this. The guy that runs the channel, I Like Watches, has mentioned before that if you ask the AliExpress store for extra links, sometimes they might provide them. So it's worth a shot. I've never had to do that because my wrist is never too big for any watches I order. Here we are in the loom room. Now that I have a better camera, there's no need to do a side-by-side unless I think the loom is impressive and want to show it off. As we speed up the time, we can see that the index loom is quite good, except for the 12 o'clock, which fades almost immediately. Unfortunately, the hand loom is not much better, with the minute hand fading quickly. It doesn't do you any good to see the indices if you can't see the hands. So unfortunately, despite the really good index loom, I have to rate the loom as subpar. What do I like about this watch? Well, I like the style. It's different than your typical GMT. Yeah, it has the multicolored bezel, but the hands are different, and it just has a different look to it. I like the Swiss movement. It gives the watch a little bit of cred, despite the price range. And I like the fact that the second hand hits the marks. And I like the inverted end links because it really lets the watch sit well on your wrist. What are my gripes and groans? Fixed bezel, despite the edge grips. I don't like the butterfly clasp because it has no micro adjust. And I don't like the weak hand loom. And when you name a watch Sapphero, you should probably use sapphire. Do I recommend this watch? After wearing the watch for a good 4 days, I've really enjoyed the watch, despite the fact that it's a hair loose on me. The big deal breaker for many will be the fixed bezel. Yeah, you can't track 3 time zones, but you still get a Swiss GMT complication at a very reasonable price. So I recommend this watch as long as you're okay with the fixed bezel. Well, thank you for watching my review, and I will be back with another unboxing and review. Be sure and like and subscribe to my channel. Bye.